Hey, good morning, everybody. Today is Saturday, the 15th of June. I am here so far with my beautiful buddy, the love of my life, Jeannie. How you doing,
Hi,
sweetheart?
Carm. I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Love you. I'm
Good.
so excited for today.
Oh my God, I'm beside myself excited.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep
We're
last night.
no, me either.
Yeah,
We're starting the show, but we're hopefully waiting for a guest or two still to come on. So
yeah,
this is why I didn't put names up on Facebook because things happen.
yeah.
But this is going to be a tribute show to Dominic Denucci. In my opinion, and I'm sure other people will share that opinion, this gentleman has never received the proper accolades that he should have over the years. I've told many stories about Dominic always being at my house. And when I was 21, by the time I was 21, I had lost my entire family and I was completely alone. And here we go. Now I don't want to cry. But anyway, Dominic came in and he stepped right up. He really did. He treated me like a daughter. He was always there. He helped us out so much in so many ways. And he was always so full of
Hungry.
advice. I know, I can't. But he always was so kind and he always was so generous and he always was so funny. So we're
Yes.
going to give him the best tribute we can. We got friends of his here as well, family, and we're going to tell nice, wonderful stories. And my Daniela, who is my daughter, of course, said to me, "Mom," she said, "make this a tribute, not a memorial." And she's right. So
Yeah.
bear with me if I cry a little bit during this because it's hard. It really is. And I think once I individually talk to everybody, it has come out. But we're going to do this and we're going to do it well. So
Yeah.
let's start bringing in some of our guests. We're going to bring in somebody who's already been here. And we are absolutely beside ourselves to have him back again because he is an amazing man.
He is.
Great stories, great participant in our podcast. Davey O'Hannon, how you doing, sweetie?
I'm
Hey,
fine. How are
baby.
you?
Yay!
Jeannie?
Good to see you. How's everything going?
Everything's going fine. It's good to be seen.
Good. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here again. You were very close to Dominic,
Yes,
and
you were.
just listening to some of your stories, like, I want you to just tell one real quick right now because I'm dying to hear this one from your mouth about the time that Dominic made you bleed.
Made me bleed.
He hit you in the head.
Yeah, pick one. All right.
I believe
I, I guess he. I guess he always thought I looked good in red. Yeah.
maybe,
You
but
know what happened? We were. I think we were working in the Philadelphia Spectrum, which was a pretty good place to work. It was a big
yes,
house, and I kind of lost my temper a little bit. I wound up outside the ring, and there was a milk crate outside the ring for us to step on as we got in. And I picked up the milk crate and I threw it at him in the ring. When I threw it, some lady hit me in the back of the head with something, I don't know what. So I turned around and I didn't notice that Dominic caught the milk crate.
oh my God.
So I hopped up, and as soon as I hopped up, he took it and he whacked me over the head with it. He kind of left it hanging on my head, but it split my scalp open
Oh my God.
up here somewhere.
Somewhere.
One of the many places that it. Anyway, he broke it open. I think I got home, and I'm not sure if I was married or not yet. But somebody said to me, "What happened?" I said, "Well, I threw a milk crate at Dominic." And they said, "Well, you threw a milk crate at Dominic,
How
and
did
you have 8 stitches in your head." Well, the rest of the story is he caught it and he cracked me on the head with it. But
Was he
yeah,
sorry that he
that
did
was
it?
one of the times that we did that.
Was
It
he?
was
Was he?
as close as we were, and he
Yeah,
was Dominic was really not using cliche, but he was like a part of our family here.
absolutely.
Dominic, eventually babysat our kids, and he used to braid my daughter's hair and
Oh,
and
God bless him.
stuff like that. Uh, So, you know, we were really close. We were really close. But sometimes, you know, when you're in a physical job like that, you know, sometimes you get carried away.
Did he ever apologize?
What's that?
Did he ever apologize to you for that?
No, I think he told me I look good in red. Actually, he says, I'm thinking you look good in a red, kid.
That's Dominic. God bless him.
Because he knew me for 50 years. I'm not sure if he knew my name. You know, he called me kid.
Hey, me too.
Called everybody kid. Yeah, he called me kid.
Everybody. Yeah. All right, Davey. Thank you. I just wanted to get a story out of you. Now we're going to bring on our next guest. And everybody's going to stay here. So our next guest is also a very close friend of Dominic's. I don't know if I've ever had the pleasure to meet him in person, but Jeannie, I have a feeling that he may have been at the gym that day, at the school that day that we were there.
Oh, when I got suplexed. Maybe.
Yeah, because he said to me, I believe he said, I'm going to ask him when we bring him on, there was somebody with blonde hair that had a little girl. And I think I might have had blonde hair back then, and I had Celeste with us. So it might have been us, but we're going to bring him on and let me see. We're going to introduce this gentleman now. His name is Cody Michaels. Hi, Cody. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Hi,
everyone.
Hi, Cody.
Hi. Davey, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Cody. How are you?
Great. You look great.
It's been a long time.
I know. You don't look a day over 30.
Well, thank you. You don't look a day over 29.
Give us just a little, you got a little story you can throw at us before we bring in the next guest?
Story?
How you met him or what he's done?
Well, so many stories. I can tell one. The first match I ever had, and I was probably trained with Dominic for maybe 2 months. And he said there was a telethon in Pittsburgh, and he had a ring set up, and he was sending guys down for matches and said, would you work? And I was going to work with Shane Douglas at the time, or Troy Martin at the time. So, but I had no tights. I had no boots to wear. And Dominic said, that's okay, kid. I give you a pair of my tights. See, I didn't know how tights were supposed to fit. They were short blue tights. I put them on. They were, they weren't snug at all. They were just a comfortable, loose fit. I had no idea. Well, I get in the ring, and we, what little we knew in 2 months, started working, and Troy grabbed my tights and pulled them, and these things came up my waist over a children's telethon. I'm sitting there just hanging out, flashing people.
Oh my God.
I knew he didn't tell me. And he's sitting there laughing at ringside. He's laughing at me. So
I can see that. I can see Dominic making somebody put me in a situation when it wasn't pleasant to them and then laughing about it.
Yes.
That's really cool. Cody, we're going to come back to you in a little bit. And we're going to put up our next guest right now. And then, like I said, I'm praying to God that, our other guests come on. If not, we're going to have a great show regardless. This person I am totally honored to have on. Again, she makes my eyes tear up. This is the daughter of Dominic Denucci. Ladies and gentlemen, Danielle. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, good morning. Hi. Hi, guys.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Davey. Hi, Cody. How are you?
Okay.
We are so honored and so happy to have you here. As I said to you before when you and I spoke on the phone, I did not realize, I was telling Davey and Jeannie earlier today, I printed out the whole Wikipedia at work because of Dominic. And I said I never knew. Again, I'm going to repeat myself, because when you practically live with somebody from time to time, you have family. It's a family thing. And I never knew all of the amazing accomplishments that he had in Australia and Japan and Canada. He was champion like 8,000 times. I can't believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is he had an amazing career for sure. Yeah. And you're right. You during your introduction, I don't think that he's been given the accolades that are really due.
Not at all. Not at all. He was inducted. Davey, I'm going to turn this over to you. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in New York. And I believe, Davey, correct me if I'm wrong, were you the person who actually inducted him? Or was Bruno?
Well, I'm sorry, repeat that.
When Dominic was inducted in New York, were you the person
in the Hall of Fame?
Inducted him?
Yeah, actually, I was up there, and it was the same. I had finally talked Bruno into coming.
Okay.
To accept his induction.
Okay.
And I was going to do Bruno's induction, and Bruno was going to do Dominic. Well, actually, Dominic and I were going to induct Bruno.
Okay.
And the fellow that's the president of the hall came to me a little earlier in the day and said, listen, Bruno doesn't want you to do this. And I've been a Bruno fan since I'm a little kid. I saw him beat Buddy Rogers in the Garden in 1963. So, I was in a panic. I said, well, if you knew Bruno really well, and much like Dominic, if you did something wrong, oh boy, it lasted. So I knew that from, like I always say, the Caruso side of my family. I knew how long these things could last. Yeah. And Bruno came to me and he said, that's not what I meant. He said, Dominic is such an accomplished guy. If two of us are up there, it's going to take some time away from him. I said, well, you're right about that. So Bruno said he'd like to do Dominic's induction, which he did, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. And I did Bruno's induction, which for somebody that was a Bruno fan, when I was done, I said, okay, well, I can die now. My life is complete. I'm all right. But Bruno hit it right on the head. He said, Dominic is so accomplished, and people don't know that. Oh, why? We depended on promoters back then to do the stuff. We were really, we were maybe 15 or 20 years ahead of our time. And I'm not patting myself, but guys like Dominic and Bruno, they were absolute megastars. If there was social media and the availability then, like there is now,
exactly,
there'd be no stopping them.
Exactly.
So,
and that's
and we just never made a big deal. I'll never forget the night that Bruno dropped the belt finally to Billy Graham down in, I think we were in Baltimore, and he walked in, and Dominic said, I don't want to talk to you. You're the ex-champ now. He says, you got nothing to do with us. It was not a big deal. It was not a big deal anymore. And at the time, I think Dominic had a tag belt, and he took the tag belt and he dropped it in the garbage can in the dressing room. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So now with the access to all the media and the availability of that stuff, somebody like Dominic would be unbelievably popular. And he was popular, let me tell you.
Exactly. And that breaks my heart, and which is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this. It breaks my heart because I and all of us sitting here right now knew what kind of a person he was deep down inside. And he deserved so much. And like you said, because of the lack of internet or the lack of communication like we have today, he would have been, forget it, he would have been on the internet every single day with everything that he did. Absolutely. Yeah. And, unfortunately, like I said, we have a ton of stories about him, which is what I really want to get into. We're going to go over to Cody Michaels right now for a minute. And now, can you please tell us how you and Dominic got started together?
I can. Freshman in college in 1982. And my roommate was Troy Martin.
Okay.
So Troy was starting to do some training with Dominic and knew Dominic, and he knew I was a wrestling fan. So I played football in college, and one day I remember after a practice coming in, and Dominic had come down to campus for some reason, to try to look at running a show, and Troy was the one that was setting it up with him. So that's the first time I met Dominic. Now, again, being a wrestling fan in Pittsburgh, there were two people that you knew, and that was Bruno Sammartino and Dominic Denucci. And it was almost a hand-in-hand thing. And I remember when I was a kid in grade school, you know, when back when they used to run shows in the area, they would send the boys, the stars, the workers to the schools in the area and talk to the little kids. So I can remember Dominic. I mean, I was 5th grade, 6th, like seeing that, and then seeing him, you know, in my room at college in my dorm was a big treat. And even then, I did not think about going into wrestling. Didn't do it.
Right.
But, you know, and then some years later, I decided to start training, and, you know, where else would I go? Right.
Well, you went to Dominic on your own, or did he suggest that, you know, you
No, he didn't. He didn't say, he did not suggest. It was, and again, it was, met him. And then a couple years later, I said, you know, I think I'm going to wrestle.
Very good. That's good, because like I said, he was very influential on people as well, even without trying. You know,
Yes.
He was just so influential over people's lives. It was ridiculous. Danielle, I'm going to go back to you for a second now. What was it like? I'm going to change. I put this picture up of you, Cody and Dominic. I'm going to have to keep moving. Danielle, I'm going to put this one up real quick, because I'll tell you what, when I saw this picture, I literally was like in tears. I literally remember when you were this tiny, believe it or not. And you were such a little girl. I never met you when you were that little, but look at that. What a picture. What a beautiful picture.
Oh, that is
a
little girl.
One of my favorites for sure.
And it's funny because we were talking about this the other day. God bless him. He had the biggest hands, right? We talked about that.
Yeah. Yes.
And Dominic had this thing where if he was mad at you, he'd go, you know, put his hand up in the air, and his arm went up forever, you know? And what was it like having Dominic as a dad?
You know, it was wonderful, of course. You know, he was on the road all the time, as everybody knows. Right. But he called every night that he could. Every night. I talked to him every evening before bed. And you know, he was very, very gentle with me, especially. Because you know, he had his way, of course. But the time that he would be able to spend quality when he was home, he wanted to make sure that it was, you know, that quality time with my mother and I, of course, and then any other family when we'd go to visit or what have you. But it was great. It was great, obviously. Yeah, there was a lot of good times, and he was always very busy when he was home. Of course, too, because of the property and the animals and stuff, you know. You were talking about the dogs. He was always bringing some kind of animal home for us to take care of while he was gone. Yeah. He was an animal lover for sure.
I know. When I was telling that story that I had the Great Dane, and like I said, you know, I ultimately had to put the Great Dane down, and he knew when he was there at my house with the dog, and he said to me, "Why didn't you tell me you had a dog?" He said, "I would have taken it to my farm."
And he would have. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, Dominic, you were here.
Yeah. And he was always doing things, and Davey and Cody can obviously attest to this as well. He never said no. If someone from our elementary school called and they wanted him to come and talk to the kids, or go, he went many times to our children's hospital in Pittsburgh, and the McGuire home had a very special place in his heart, which is out here in Beaver County. And he went many times, and many of the guys went with him as well. Cody, I don't know if you ever went with him or Davey, but
yeah, sure I did.
Yeah. That's, you know, he was always looking for things like that. Anything that he could do. The school for the deaf. He did many things down there as well. There's a school for the deaf in Pittsburgh. So yeah, very generous, anything. And he was always very honored and humbled when people came up to him. I can remember him, and he always liked to tell the story. We went to Kennywood, and my girlfriend Judy and Chris went, and their brothers. There was a big gaggle of us, and it was hard to get through the park without being stopped every 5 seconds. But nobody minded, and he certainly never minded. But
That's
he would
great.
tell the story that he made us stand in line we made him stand in line with us for 45 minutes to go on the roller coaster, and he thought for sure he was going to die once he got on it. He had no idea what he was getting on the ride.
God.
It was the Thunderbolt, with the big one at Kennywood. So yeah,
he
told that story. Yeah, he loved that story. Yeah,
that's great. Well, we were talking the other night too, or last night rather, about what your dad did go into other countries. Did he ever specify or tell you where he liked to go the best between Canada and Japan and Australia? Or
Japan and Australia were his absolute favorite.
Yeah,
probably Japan would be number one, but he loved Australia as well.
Did he? Yeah, that's what Davey was saying, that he preferred Japan. And it's funny because I didn't know any of this. And as Dominic would say, we met at 12, and he would tell everybody, I met her, she still had the snot in her nose,
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of this, all I knew was, like I said, what happened when he was right there with us. But I used to say to him, why do you got to go there? Why do you go so far away? You're just a knucklehead. He used to call me knucklehead all the time. Yeah. Knucklehead, and he used to call me Carmela because my last name didn't have an A, according to him, It was always Carmela. And then he would call me stupid, and he would call me knucklehead, and he would call me, but he always was kind. Every time he left, he would hug me and he would give me a kiss, and he'd say, look, he said, if you ever need anything, you have my number. I'm here if you need me. Because he knew, like I had said earlier, my dad abandoned me, and I had lost my entire family by the time I was 21. And he was there. He was always there for me all the time. And that made me love him even more like a dad. And we shared your father like so many times, so much, and we loved him dearly. But I'm going to go over to Jeannie now. Jeannie, I think you want to tell us a little something about, tell us our stories again about you and Dominic, because Jeannie's got some stories. I'm going to put that picture up.
Oh, yeah. No, Dominic loved him to death. He was so kind, so sweet, so funny, and he wanted to train me to be a wrestler in the worst way. He would always bug me, and I would always say no. And even though I really did want to, just in the 80s, women's wrestling was just, no, they were not respected, not treated well. And I was like, I don't think I could do that. But he finally got us up to his school, and I knew what he was doing, but trying hard not to fall for it. When he was done training some of the guys, he said, hey kid, get in the ring. And I was crapping my pants. I'm like, what? And he got me in the ring, and he told one of his students, suplex her. But not a snap suplex, or a snap suplex, not a standing suplex. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go home with a dislocated something. And I knew how to get into the hold, and I screamed as I went over. And, and then I was like, wow, that was awesome. In my head, I'm like, and then he's like, you did it wrong. Do it again. And I said, what did I do wrong? I went up, I went over, I landed on my back. What did I do wrong? And he's like, you have to land with your legs, with your knees bent, so your feet hit first, or you're going to have back problems. And I'm like, Dominic, I love you. I'm not going to sue you. I'm fine. It's okay. And he's like, he wouldn't let me out of the ring until I did it again, did it the right way. And It was awesome. It was awesome. I did want to do more, but I knew it wouldn't be for me. And then later that night, he had a show where it was him against Larry Zbyszko. And I think everybody on the undercard was his students, but I'm not real sure because he put me in the back and he's like, don't move. Don't leave till I come get you. And I didn't. And when it was time, I got the valet for Larry Zbyszko, which I loved. And the picture with him grabbing my hair and the big hands and the long arms. And when he did that, I was like trying to punch him. Of course, I'm hitting air because his arms are as long as his legs. And he's like, no, chop. So then I start chopping. I'm like, this feels stupid. This isn't natural. No. And so I just started trying to punch again because that was normal for me. And it was a great experience, a great, I absolutely loved it. And anytime, he would come over to Carmela's house, it was, or did an appearance at her wrestling store. He was just so kind and loving and funny and just an amazing human being. I loved him like forever. I always thought he thought of me as a, Carmela's pain in the ass little friend, but he was always kind to me. I loved him to death. Yeah. The one regret is that we weren't able to get up to that induction in New York to see him. Because I know we really wanted to.
Yeah, it would have been really nice to get up there, but then, like I said, there was a lot of things that went on with Dominic that we weren't privy to. Okay. Oh, Mick just texted me. Hopefully he's going to be on. Thank God. But anyway, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to this later, but I want to talk to you, Cody, about. Do you have any kind of stories that can tell us about something Dominic did to you, or something funny, or something, an incident that you that you had with him?
He was a prankster.
He was a prankster.
He was a prankster, and like I said initially, my first match, he gives me a pair of tights that were obviously too big, so he started out that way. But he was also a good friend too, and. I know, and Davey had known him longer than I have. He had so much respect for Davey, and I want to tell him while he's here. He had so much respect for Davey O'Hannon. And, but that's one thing, like getting into the business like we did. Of course, everybody, knew a Dominic, knew a Bruno. But guys like us that learned and studied the business, we knew the Davey O'Hannon. And don't let him sit up there and smile and act like Davey was a hell of a worker.
Absolutely.
Davey was a hell of a hand. And I remember working a show with Davey. Dominic took us down Convention Center, Wildwood Boardwalk. And this had to be maybe mid-later 80s. And I don't know if it was Dick Worley running the show. I don't know who were running the shows, but Dominic was take us down. And I remember the first time Dominic introduced me to Davey O'Hannon. And again, I'd known Davey from watching and reading in the magazine, so I knew of Davey's career.
Right.
So at first I met Davey, young boy in the business, respectful. And I sat down and Davey goes, "Do you ever see anybody do this?" And he dislocates his knee when he's sitting down. Takes it.
It bends sideways, no more.
Do you remember? So Davey made his knee. And Dominic's laughing because it made me sick to see somebody's knee like it was dislocating. But that's the first time I met Davey.
Wow. That's a nice meeting.
It after that. But.
Yeah, the first time you meet somebody, they dislocate a body part. It's like, hi, how are you, crack? Davey, stop. You're funny. Hopefully, I'm going to make a little announcement. God willing. We have another guest coming. He is not here yet, but as soon as he gets here, we're going to add a whole bunch to this. And again, we're just going to, like I said, just keep telling stories. I could literally go on all day doing this. I have to tell
Carmela,
you.
tell the story about the joke he played on a couple of his students, the guys at your house.
Well, I was telling Danielle last night. He used to come to our house, and he always had somebody with him. He had some of the students with him. I don't know, Cody. I don't know. I don't remember. God forbid. I'm so
Carmel,
sorry.
here. The funny thing is, you're going to tell that story. I don't remember it either, but I remember traveling with him to houses. Troy swears I was there when that happened.
I think you were.
He swears I stayed over your house.
I think
Dominic
you were.
did that.
Yeah, because we had tons of people over all the time. So Dominic had some of his young boys, from training over and blah, blah, blah. And he used to always make fun of them and yell at them when they were falling asleep or whatever. He'd be drinking coffee till all hours of the night. How he drank all that black coffee is beyond me. But he would be drinking. And look at them, knucklehead, whatever. And then one point, I forget who it was, fell asleep on my like a lounge chair or recliner, something like that. And I had unpacked some groceries, in the kitchen. And Dominic was always looking through my stuff, And he always go open my cabinets and, what's this? So he picked up a bottle of Nair. And he said, what's this? I said, it takes hair off, when you shave, instead of shaving your legs or whatever, And you have to understand, Dominic and I had no secrets whatsoever. So he would just ask me something flat out, and I'd tell him flat out, And he goes, okay. So he goes down, and I had a split level. So he goes down a couple steps into the living room or the den at that point. And he put this Nair on one eyebrow of this young man while he's sleeping. And I said, Dominic, what are you doing? I said, that's good. He's going to lose that hair. He goes, good. Then he'll know not to sleep. The next morning, this poor soul had one eyebrow going. And, you're not supposed to leave it on that long, but Dominic didn't care. And he had one eyebrow on, and we tried penciling it and doing this and doing that. He was so angry. And I was devastated for this poor boy. And Dominic, of course, turns around and goes, it's her stuff. And I'm like, it's my stuff. And you did it, What's the matter with you? But
you don't get much use out of an eyebrow.
He did so many things. And at one time he was there, and I had one of the moon dogs over. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Spot. And Dominic said, I was messing, of course. And I said, that stuff isn't real and blah, blah, blah. Dominic says to him, put her in a sleeper hold. Okay. And I'm like, no, come on, really? Like, I'm okay. I didn't mean to say that. No. He pushes me. Moondog grabs me by the back. He got his hand around my neck like this, and he's literally like squeezing my head until I'm like coughing. I'm like, So Dominic says, let her go. And afterwards, Dominic says to me, so, you still got something to say? And I'm like, you know what? I hate you. And I kicked him. In his shin.
That's the way he was. That's the way he was. I remember there was a time, there was a girl that came up to train. Mm-hmm. Her brother was an amateur wrestler and was wrestling at the Naval Academy. Came up, Dominic got in the ring with him, and the guy was kind of what we would consider a little stiff.
Yeah.
Dominic gets out. He goes, kid, go in with him. So I get in the ring. He goes, stretch him.
Oh, my God.
And that's what he had me do to this kid. Was take him down and choke him out until we would tap.
That's crazy.
But that's,
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cody. No.
Go. You go.
Okay. I'm just beyond excited right now. I just got a notification that our special guest is here, and we're going to put him on in a second. I asked him when I spoke to him on the phone if I was allowed to introduce him this way, and he gave me permission. So I am beyond honored for everybody on this screen. But I'm also beyond honored that this next gentleman, who doesn't know me, well, he met me a million years ago, but as of right now, probably thinks I'm an insane woman, is probably, oh my God, I'm like beside myself. We have with us a man who has been Cactus Jack. He has been, I'm excited. I'm going to mess up. Dude Love. He has been, come on, help me with the third one, somebody. He has
Mankind.
Mankind. There you go. Good. And I also want to say the way Jim Ross always introduced him as Mrs. Foley's baby boy. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is Mick Foley, and we are honored as hell to have him on. Mick, there you go.
There he is.
Hi.
Hey, Mickey.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Wait. We can't hear you, honey. Your microphone is off. Hold on a second. Hold on. unmute. I'm trying to unmute you, honey. Hold on. Brian, we need to unmute his mic. Can you help? Okay, hold on, Mick. Just be patient, please. All right, try it now. Just say something. Oh, it muted again. Hold on. Why did it mute again? All right, your mic is not connected. Can you hear us? Okay, I think he's going to try again. Oh my God, I just burst into a bunch of sweat. I messed that all up, didn't I? I'm so excited. I know I screwed
Nice
that
seeing
up.
you, Mickey. Take care.
Oh, I hope to God he has a good time. I really do, because I mean, he doesn't really know me that well. I met him a few years ago through Dominic, and I said to him, you know, Dominic always spoke so highly of him, and he was like, Mickey, and he introduced me to him, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he introduced me as a pain in the ass the first time we met. And my ex-husband, Paul, who is a wonderful man, and God bless him, now he's not well. But anyway, he loved Dominic. Hold on one second. Just bear with me. I don't care if this goes on the air like this, because I'm so excited. He just told Mick to call, or Mick can call Brian if he needs any help. Okay, so anyway, Dominic was like, you know, she's a pain in the ass, she's this or she's that. And Mick was very kind, as always, a very kind man. And, you know, Dominic, again, being gentle and kind as he always was, pushed me and made me sit down. And if he was around now with all I would fall down 100 times right now if he pushed me the way he did years ago. But I met Mick a couple times through Dominic. So when I reconnected with Mick, I was like, you know, I hope you remember me, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, right away from the get, like, he just immediately contacted me. He was a saint. He was a wonderful person. I hope to God Brian can help him connect, and we'll get him one. But anyway, let's go back to what we were talking about. Again, I'm not going to make any apologies for messing up, because I am so excited. It's beyond words to have all of you here, and I don't care. So there you go.
No need to apologize or anything. Technical issues happen beyond our control.
All right. He said, all right, we're still trying. Hold on. I'm going to tell
while
him
we're waiting. Cody, how was Dominic as a trainer? Like, how was he with the guys, as far as, you know?
Great. You know, and again, initially, you know, I came from a football background. Mm-hmm. So wrestling wise, I did not know, but, you know, it's different today than it was then. And Davey can attest to that, you know, the first time I stepped in the ring, he beat the shit out of me. And not to the point of hurting, but the point of seeing how you're committed, you know, to see if you're going to be. So, you know, and it went from there, but just the basics, you know, how was he as a trainer? He's the type of trainer that if the kids and the guys wrestling today that are on top, that are stars, had him as a teacher, they would be much better wrestler. This business would be better, because a lot of guys today have not been taught from that generation, from Davy's generation, from Dominic's generation, that it has not been passed on.
No.
So it's the basics, and you have to know how to wrestle. You know, in the way I was taught, you learned how to wrestle. It wasn't, you didn't talk, you know, 30 minutes and rehearse your match beforehand. You just were taught how to wrestle. And that's, and Dominic had a good amateur background himself also.
Mm-hmm. He had a great
amateur background. A lot of what he taught us.
Well, our philosophy was you had to know how to wrestle before you could work.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And Dominic had an unbelievably great amateur background. And he and I used to have fun, because we used to spend sometimes 10 minutes before we'd start working in the ring, wrestling in the ring.
Yes.
You know, I've been to a couple, and I don't go to any. I don't watch any wrestling, but I got invited to an independent show, and Dominic and Dick Worley and I went together, and we were sitting in the back waiting to do whatever they wanted us to do, and we watched two new guys spend 45 minutes talking about the match they were going to have. And sometimes Dominic and I didn't have to exchange words. We would just look at each other, and we looked at each other and went. So I figured I'd be the big mouth and ask the question. And I said to the kid, "You talking about your match now?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How are you going to remember all of that? You know, how long are you going to wrestle for?" "Oh, about 10 minutes. I said, "You just spent 45 minutes talking about what you're going to do." And Dominic said to me, "They got no clue." And he's right.
Yes.
We never, I mean, I wrestled Dominic a million times. We really, you know, we may talk about the finish, the second or two, but we didn't have a discussion about what was going on. We just went and wrestled.
Right.
We just went and wrestled.
Exactly.
We did. And
that was,
and don't forget, I came around after Dominic, so I trusted him with my body.
Yes.
I trusted him.
Yes.
You know, and that's what you learn how to do. He was an absolute master, and he was so good at that because he was such a quality guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I always said the real test of friendship and how close you could be with somebody is, can you ride 500 miles in the car and not feel compelled to talk?
Exactly.
Just
exactly.
be there.
Exactly. All right. I think we're back.
You know, so guys that spent that time understand that. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to make conversation with Dominic or Manny Soto or any of them for that matter. Yeah, when you're together so much like that, it's nice to have quiet
you
time.
click.
You'd be in the car, you know, and you would do that. And
friendship is what's important.
Yeah, he was such an inherently nice person that was easy to do. Now I see our friend Mickey here. Hey, Mickey.
Mick's here. Hey, Mickey made it. Yay.
I don't know how to use. I can't find my tablet. I don't even know how to get into the center of this thing. It's just like
you're fine. Just leave it just like that. You look perfect.
All right.
You do. You look great.
Oh man. I woke up at 8:30 a.m. after getting to bed around 4:30, and then I went back to sleep. I had this incredibly vivid dream about winning Bruiser Brody's respect in one of the roughest matches of all time. And I think maybe because I saw Abdullah the Butcher for the first time in over 20 years. I saw him last weekend, but I woke up. I was like, "Wow, what a dream! Was it a dream?" And then I was like, I saw the message here from you, and I was like, "Somebody overslept." Even after you changed the time on my behalf, 2 hours to allow for me to sleep.
It's okay. It's okay. Believe me, we are honored that you're here. Here's a picture of you and Dominic behind me. Mick, this young lady up here at the top is my friend Jeannie. She's my co-host.
And I see Danielle smiling there. Hello,
yeah.
Hi, Mickey. How are you?
I love it. There's a very select group of people that still call me Mickey.
Yeah.
Eddie Gilbert was one of them because he met me through Dominic. And, Cody Michaels, Mark, who is, as I know him, he still calls me Mickey. And it's so nice. It's so nice to hear. It's such a nice reminder. Even my wife called me Mickey for about the first 2 years we were together.
You were always Mickey to mom and dad, so you're always going to be Mickey to me.
Yes, thank you so much.
Always. Well, you know, Mick, I wanted to ask you now that you're here, we have been talking nonstop about stories about Dominic and how he had so many accolades in Australia and Japan and Canada, and how under noticed he was in the wrestling world. And we're talking about, Cody was just saying about how he was so kind, and Davey was just saying that you could literally trust him with your body if you were in the ring with him or whatever. that it's a shame that if he was younger today, how do you think he might have handled things if he was younger in the wrestling world today with the way things are now?
Well, one of the good things, positives, but negatives back in the days of the territories is that you could get multiple runs. The negative is that most of the world was not aware of the run you were having, no matter how good it was. So,
right.
It was crazy how over Dominic was in Australia, but Australia geographically is about as far away from the United States as you can possibly be.
Exactly.
And so it's just like in that day, I don't even think they kept the tapes. I remember even when I worked for WCW, like they had to get tapes from a fan because nobody thought to preserve the tapes. Nobody knew they were supposed to be like in cold storage either. And so largely a lot of Dominic's best work was done when it's just up to the memories. And that was every year we lose more people who were around her that time or lose their memories. I think he would have done great. I think you have to assume that anyone who was great in a certain era would find a way to adapt. I know I would need to adapt if I was in the modern era. And I think Dominic would have done well, very well, in the current era. Like that's because he knew the business, knew it so well. Mm-hmm. It's funny because we used to tease him about his English until we went to countries like Burkina Faso where they spoke French, and Dominic spoke some Spanish. Of course, he spoke Italian and a little bit of English, but.
I used to tell him he spoke 4.5 languages.
Oh my God! Yeah, he did. He spoke several languages. Mick, how did you meet Dominic?
Oh man, I'm so sorry about this thing here. I should get the hang of this. I met Dominic through a promoter named Tommy D.
Okay, I remember him.
Tommy D ran shows in the New York metro area, and he ran pretty successful shows. So I met him at a benefit at my old high school. Luckily, my dad was the athletic director. He told this promoter had a son who was crazy about wrestling, and the promoter said if he met me at the show, he would talk to me. And I guess he saw enough in me to want to put me on the ring crew. He spoke to Dominic, and Dominic agreed to start training me when I got the ring set up before the people came in. But after 4 or 5 months, there were times when I did not get the ring set up before the people came in. And this is what I love about the English. So if I can, I can use a little colorful language here, right?
Go ahead. Yep.
So when I say he was training me, he was, Dominic was very capable of I was about 230 then, 6'4", 230, had a little amateur background. And clearly he can impose his will on just about anybody, but he never injured me. He never took liberties, but he did test me. And so the one day we took, I can't believe I don't know how to use a phone after all these years.
You really look good, Mick. You're fine.
Yeah, you do.
Thanks. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, you're good.
I could do this thing here. Is that better?
No, put it the way it was before.
All right.
There you go. Perfect.
You don't have to yell at me from it. So, back when the back body drop was like, it was the foundation of any babyface's comeback, and really it was it was a cutoff move. Like it was one of the most devastating moves. And the only way to learn to take a good backdrop is by taking many, many bad backdrops or listen, right? Am I? Yeah. And you have to take my word for it. Every bad backdrop you take knocks the wind out of you. Mm-hmm. So after this is probably our 10th workout, and he calls me aside inside, and he says, "Amiki, every time I see you, I beat the shit out of you, and you never complain. Today you take a 25 backdrop," and then he uses both hands, but he goes, "You've got a ball," singular. A ball.
A ball?
A ball this big, and he makes like a volleyball.
Oh my God.
And that's when he told me, he goes, "I have some boys I'm training." And I've told this story before, but hopefully it's worth repeating, and some people are hearing it for the first time. The truth is, if I'd had a Rand McNally Atlas or if a GPS had been invented, I wouldn't be talking to you today because Pittsburgh's 350 miles from where I went, Freedom, PA. It's 350 miles one way, 700 miles, and I had $110 to my name.
Oh my God.
But I was on board, and that was really the second step of the journey and the most important step. And I'll tell you something that's really telling about Dominic and Danielle. I think you'll really appreciate this. Is I had been told, I don't know where I heard this, but it would be like $50 a lesson. And like I said, I had $110 to my name, maybe 120. So when Dominic says, how much do you think you should pay? I was told $100 a lesson. And so I thought I'd shoot low and say 50, and he shakes his head, and I feel my heart drop. He goes, that's too much. You give me $25.
Oh.
So I offer him 50. He takes 25. And then at the end of 8 or 9 months, he says, Mickey, you come here every weekend. He goes, you sleep in your car. He goes, you don't pay anymore. So for someone who has been offered the money to take less and then to cut off that little stream of revenue because he thinks it's the right thing to do, I think it's pretty indicative of what type of man Dominic was.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I'm going to cry again. He was so, I'm telling you, he was so kind. I was telling Mickey, I was telling them, and I'm going to repeat it again because you weren't here yet. I lost my whole family by the time I was 21.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. My father abandoned me. He left, and he was the only family I had left. And Dominic, God bless him, came in and he stepped up, and he didn't have to. He every time he came into town, he came over to my house. He took care of me. He did everything he could for me. We cooked. We used to cook together, and he used to tell me how my cooking sucked because I couldn't cook like him, And,
he was good. He was good.
He was very good, and he had beautiful names for me like Knucklehead and Dumbass and that kind of stuff. And he used to always call me Carmel, without the extra A at the end. And I got to tell you that we were talking about it this morning, and Jeannie and I both kind of broke up a little bit, but without him, I'll be very honest with you, without him helping me the way he did, and my godmother and my ex-husband at the time, I don't know where I would be today. And that's the God's honest truth. I learned a lot from him. Yeah. I learned how much, how good and important life was and how valuable. And I was telling them again, my ex-husband now is in a hospital. He's not well. And Dominic loved him. Dominic used to always say to him, where do you find her? Why you marry her? Get rid of her. He used to say stuff like that all the time. But he was as much of a jokester, but not quite as much as he was a saint. He was a kind man. He was a good man. And we all have incredible stories. And that's what this particular show is about. It's about him because, again, we don't believe that he received the accolades that he was deserved, Yes. And it was a shame because he was way ahead of his time, in my opinion. And we were all telling our own stories. And, we were telling stories about how one time he came over to my house with some of the boys from his training school and put an air on one of the guy's eyebrows, and he woke up the next morning with no eyebrow. And but I got to tell you, Mickey, he loved you. He loved you to death. He always talked about you. And he knew that one day he knew you were going to be big. He knew you were going to be special. He knew that you were going to be a household name. He knew that everything, because he always said he's such a good boy. He's such a good boy. And he worked so hard. And he always talked like that about you. If I may ask you, and please forgive me if I'm out of line on this, and I'm pretty sure it was you. Was there an incident that I read that you talked about boots?
Yeah, you know what?
Would you mind?
Yeah, I needed boots, and Dominic, these boots must have been a couple sizes too small for him because he had much bigger feet than I do. Mm-hmm. But he just asked me one day. He said, "Mickey, you need he didn't ask me. Declared, you need boots." And I said, "I know. I don't know. I knew nothing about gear. At that time there was Carl and Hildegard who made everyone's tights. So you'd have WrestleMania 3 in front of 100,000 people, and Macho Man would have the same embroidery that an indie guy did, in his first match, because there was literally one place to go. So I didn't know where to get boots, and he brings out a pair of boots that fit me perfectly, and I'm thinking, oh God, how much? He goes, how about $25? $25. I still have them, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put them on loan to the International Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany, where they can be seen by. What's great about that hall is it's inside the big venue in Albany, New York. So the founder there told me they had more visitors in the first 6 months than the hall had in the last several years in Texas. It just makes sense, and so I have those original boots. I'm going to loan them to the hall, along with like my original Dude Love tights and boots, the original Mankind tights, shirt, and boots, and it really makes the three. And the second pair of Cactus tights, I think I eBayed the first pair. I'm so glad I never, I either gave away or I think with the leopard skin boots, I auctioned them for charity, but I just didn't want to part with those boots. And I'm so glad that they'll have a place where people can see them. Dominic's in that Hall of Fame, as he is. He's in that Hall of Fame. And his robe is there. I wore his robe when I visited the hall a couple of years ago. I'll have to send you over a photo, Danielle. I think you might appreciate that.
Yeah, I would love it.
Could you send it to me too, please?
Yeah, I sure will.
Thank you.
Will.
Well, I have to tell you a story. I was talking to Danielle last night, and I had been talked about this with Davey a while back too, about his robe, And of course, being me, I am like, I don't think before. I have no filter. I don't think before I speak. I don't care, So Davey was saying, there's a lot of stuff up there that belongs to wrestlers and blah, blah, blah. And he said that, because I got to go up there one day, and check it out and all that. And he goes, see what we're going to do with this stuff. So then he says, and, remember Dominic's robe, that real long robe, he goes, we got to figure out, what to do with that. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it. He's like, Carmela, that goes to Danielle, not you. And I was like, oh, all right. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take anything. I don't care, But I was, I don't care. I'll take anything any of you have. I love it because
I didn't want to interrupt before Mickey was talking, and I can tell you for sure how fond Dominic was of Mickey. Like I said, when we're alone in our own little world, sometimes he has told that to me, and it just speaks to what a good person he was. My wife, maybe Mickey's wife too, or Mark's or Cody's. My wife is what we call wrestled out. She doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
No, not that story again. But anyway, over 20 years, my wife has walked into the living room or the guest room and come back in the bedroom and said, "Who is that?"
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a wild Samoan, but I'm not sure. So she's pretty much wrestled out. But Dominic, when he was making the transition from wrestling into the newspaper business, lived with us, lived in our house with us. And like I said in the beginning, he was just a part of our family. Just a part of our family. That's what he was. My kids were incredibly fond of him. My wife, like I said, doesn't want to hear about wrestlers, but Dominic was there. And a funny thing that Mickey said in the beginning, I don't know where Mick and I had bumped into one another quite some time ago, and my wife was there, and I hadn't seen Mickey in a long time. I think I had seen him when Dominic first brought him to Wildwood, to the convention hall. He and Dominic worked there, and I kind of ran the show. But anyway, I said, "Hey, Mickey, how you doing?" And he said, "Hi, Davey." And he looked at my wife and he said, "You can tell who the old timers are because they all call me Mickey."
Oh, yeah.
And that's what
I just realized I put my glasses on. There's Cody. Sorry, buddy. I was thinking to myself,
there he is over there.
I got an extra pair here if you want them there.
Oh, yeah.
I got him to read, to see, to drive. But anyway, he's such
here.
So Mick, I'm already sure that you knew this, but he was so sincerely fond of you, and he talked about it a lot.
You know what? He's made that known. Danielle, you told me, and Mark, you said or Cody, you said he always talked about me. Funny bonding moment, Davey. I don't think you even know I have. And Danielle, I hope this is not out of line to talk about your dad's service. But you remember the priest? He referred to wrestling as phony baloney.
Yeah.
So I see Cody, and he was making the point that in a world of phony baloney, Dominic was the real deal. But clearly we don't like to be the phony baloney.
Right.
And so I see Cody. We were sitting right next to each other, and after he goes, "Did you see Davey? He was about ready to hit the ring."
Davey was going to get up and shoot with the priest.
One thing that I really appreciate is that we were a pretty tight-knit group, when we were training, especially that first group. And we have stayed in touch now. Some of us are not here. We lost Brian Hildebrand and Ray Miller and Tony Nardo passed away a few years ago. And sometimes it's not all of us, but it's Dickie Flanagan coming in from Ohio, and it's Shane Douglas coming in, and Cody. I always loved when I would come to town and I would do the storytelling, and you guys would be there in the front row. And I hear some rustling. My dog may be someplace where it's not supposed to be. And I have to, that's you, Mickey. Okay, that's my son. That's not my dog. My son, Mickey.
Okay.
And he is Mickey. He's always been Mickey. So
there you go.
But just nothing but great memories. I don't have a single bad memory of my time. And the funny thing is, we weren't making any money.
No.
But those are the times I remember the best. And we're talking about people I met in 1985 or late 85, and we've kept in touch for almost 40 years, which is
the type of person Dominic was. Mick, if you remember when it was you, Brian, Dominic, when you guys went out west on a tour.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did not go on that trip. Because it's the kind of person Dominic was. When he was booking that trip and set up, he goes, you have a job, you make money. He goes, you're not going to make no money on this trip. You stay at home.
Yeah. He wouldn't let you go. I remember that. Yeah.
And he was correct with that prediction,
Yes.
Yeah,
he was, especially back then,
Oh, he was. But that's, not just, while we're on the same vein, Mickey, you know how he felt about you. And Davey, you said it earlier that, when you're driving in a car with someone and you've worked with someone all these years, you don't need to think up a conversation or strike. You're okay just being in the same, with the same people. I've had that instance with him a lot. And, not long before he passed away, we talked, and he said some things to me that I'll keep to myself. I won't share. They're personal. But he also, Mickey, he had such a respect for you. You were always, that's my boy. That's my boy. Yeah. That's what he called you.
He sure did.
And Davey, I can't say enough about you, because the way the business was when you guys and early on when I was, we didn't make the money that's out there now. So
no, not at all.
What Davey, the friendship and what you did for him.
Yeah, I agree, Davey.
In the going to the paper, and remember, those are times too. He would work the paper with you. He would drive home and train us Saturdays, Sundays, drive back out.
Yep.
So it was, not only was Mickey making the drive, Dominic was making the drive, but he had such a high respect for you, Davey, and I can't say enough for me what that opportunity you provided for him doing.
That's what friends are for.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
There was a handful of people that you were able to allow that transition for. And
exactly.
that's really valuable. Dominic, he was still wrestling for many, many years, but that wasn't his primary vocation. And as I've said, he could have made more at the wrestling school, but chose not to, and we all appreciated that. And I think that's part of the reason why we, formed such a bond.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
That wrestling.
And he was as incredibly popular in the newspaper union as he was in the wrestling business. He was universally well liked. The newspaper union, Dominic and Mike Ciciliano used to say, just like the wrestling business, a little cliquey, and and he was accepted, and he was a hard worker. He never embarrassed me, certainly, and they loved him. They just loved him because he was Dominic.
Yeah.
Exactly, because he was Dominic. And the thing is, it's like, again, when we were young, he was at my house, the kids in my neighborhood literally died over him being there. And I was telling Danielle this story, and I'm going to repeat it. He was at my house once with Jay Strongbow, and they were constantly arguing the whole time, with Jay telling him how cheap he was. Could not understand why Dominic was so cheap.
Well, there's a daily double for you.
Yeah, right. For both of them, right? And we were eating dinner, and somebody I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jay had a station wagon back then, and somebody came to my window and said, "Hey, there's a car out here with a flat," and Jay, even then, he was very mumbly, very quiet. And he said, mumbling to Dominic under his breath, "I hate you." He's like, "I told you not to be so cheap. I wanted to get the Michelin tires. You had to get the cheap ones." So we go out to the car, and Jay is down there changing the tire. And Dominic's like, "Oh, not shut up." He said, "That's all you do. You always complain. You always complain." So Jay took the tire off the car and literally threw it at Dominic. And Dominic said, "Son of a bitch," and he throws the tire back, right? And the kids in my neighborhood are like, "Oh my God, they're playing catch with a tire," And we had the best time. And it's funny because my mother, God rest her soul, loved wrestling, loved Bruno, loved Dominic. She passed away in '79, so Mick, she never got to know you or Davey or Cody, but she, or Jeannie even, she was amazing. And she loved them. That's when my mom passed away. Some things started happening in my house. Jeannie can attest to that for several things. Yeah, we believe my mother was around. And Dominic and Mike Ciciliano were having dinner at my house. And when my mom passed away, I started doing all the cooking and all that stuff. And we're eating dinner, and all of a sudden my dining room lights just went off. And Dominic looks up. And he's sitting there. Then they come back on, and he said to me, "Maybe the bulbs are a little loose." So he went up and he tightened the bulbs in the chandelier thing that I had, and they went off again. And he goes, "Ma Carmela," he goes, "What's the matter? You don't pay the bill?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "The bill's paid." He goes, "Something's wrong. You got a wire messed up?" I said, "No." I said, "I actually had an electrician out here not too long ago." He said, I said to him, "And there's nothing wrong that he can find." And he was like, and he's just sitting there like that, and he's looking around. And he's going like this, and he looks around, and he goes, "You know what it is?" I said, "What?" He goes, "That's your mother." I said, "Really? You think so?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Because she think that you still a pain in the ass, and she want to get you for it." I was like, oh my God. Dominic constantly bragged me to death about everything. And when I met you, Mickey, he's like, "Why would he want to meet you? Why? What do you think? You're special? Why would he want to meet you?" And I'm like, "No, I want to meet him. I don't think he'd want to meet me." But we had, and Davey, again, same thing. Unfortunately, Cody, I didn't know you at the time, but I heard incredible accolades about Davey and about Mick, and how much he absolutely loved them. And when Dominic made a friend, let me tell you, you had a friend in Dominic. You had a friend literally the rest of your life. No matter what it was. And Dominic, I was saying earlier, when he would leave my house, all the joking aside, he'd bend way down, and he'd hug me and give me a kiss and whatever. And he'd be like, "Now you listen." He goes, "If you need me, because you calling me, and I'd be here for you. I said, oh, thank you. And I started to cry. I used to cry all the time. And then he'd make a joke. He goes, "Man, don't call me too much." Because you're a pain in the ass, and I'm thinking to myself, and then all the time that I was reaching out to you guys to plan this, I thought of you, Mick, and I'm thinking to myself, even my daughter was like, don't contact him too much.
Well,
and
he was a few words, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I was like, but I have to, and my daughter's like, Mick's not going to do this. You're annoying him. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't mean to do it. But, if Dominic was here, Dominic would be, knock it off. What do you think? He gives a shit about you? What do you think? He want to hear from you? Leave him alone, But I honestly and truthfully think that Dominic would be happy today. I believe that he would be happy that his little group of friends is here with him, talking about him. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I just thought of something. And we're going over some quick Dominic stories. I don't know what the time constraints are here.
Don't worry about time.
No constraints. Don't worry.
No constraints.
Dominic and Gino Morella, who was Gorilla Monsoon,
right,
bought 2 head of cattle once. And Dominic said, I'll keep them up on my farm. Okay, well, I wasn't involved in that. They bought them and kept them up. A while later, I had to pick up Gino at his house. We were traveling together. And we were going up to Pittsburgh for the swing through West Virginia and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Gino says, we got to pick up the chooch. He says, and I want to see how the cow is doing or the bull is doing. So we pulled into the driveway in freedom, and Dominic didn't see us pull up. We walked over, and we're leaning on the corral fence, and there's only one bull walking around. So Dominic finally walked out. He says, hey, kid, how you doing? I said, good. He says hi to Gino. And Gino says, where's the other bull? And Dominic looked at him for a second. And he said, oh, yours. He died.
Oh, my God.
Now, Mickey knew Gino, and Gino went like this.
I could just see him do that.
On his nose, and he went, mine died. Dominic said, yours. It didn't feel good. He died. Gino couldn't even get mad at him because it was Dominic.
Yeah, you can't. How could you ever get mad at Dominic? Davey, I want to ask you to tell the story about when you first met Dominic. That cracked me up so bad. You have to repeat it, please.
When I first met Dominic?
Yes.
I think it was either in Buffalo or Rochester, one of those towns up there.
This is priceless.
And I was relatively new in the business, and since I never got broken into the business, I had on-the-job training because I BS'd my way in. I wanted to be in there so badly. Up in that area, the fellow that owned the ring was a retired wrestler named Baron Gattoni, and his ring had boards sticking up, a piece of canvas that you didn't even want to touch. It was so terrible, filthy, and it was a terrible ring, and the ropes were cables covered by, and I'm sure Mickey has seen this, hard rubber hose.
Oh, yeah.
And
sure.
they hurt. They hurt. Well, like I said, I was brand new, and I was in my match working on it. And I leaned back on the ropes, and I was all wet, and the top rope went over my head, and I went out backwards, and I landed right on my head. Right on my head. Lights out. Lights out. It sounded like the referee and the crowd were 2 miles away. And so however long it took, they picked me up, and my feet were kind of shuffling. The 2 people were helping me back to the dressing room. And as we got to the runway to go in, Dominic was leaning on a bleacher like this. And when we went past him, I heard when I could still hear, I'm sort of deaf now, but as we went past Dominic, and keep in mind, I really didn't know him that well. I knew it was Dominic Denucci, but I was a new punk. I minded my business. I watched and I stayed by myself. And as we went by Dominic, I heard a voice say, "Did you hurt yourself, a kid?" So in the dressing room, ice bag on my neck, in the shower, and I finally came out, and who's at the table playing cards, and Dominic is sitting there, And I walked over and I said, "Excuse me, Dominic, did you hurt yourself, a kid?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I see you land on your head." He says, "You been hurt?" That's how I met Dominic.
Oh my God.
A little while later, we traveled together, and then, no secret, became very close friends. See, but the old timers, if they watched and you had a decent attitude, somebody would walk over to you in the dressing room and say, "Do you mind a little bit of constructive criticism?"
Yeah.
And if you had half of a brain in your head, you said, "Yeah, sure, whatever you can tell me." They'd say, "Come with me." You'd walk into the shower, so you were alone or somewhere, and they'd say, "Well, you know what? Why don't you try doing it like this? Or why don't you try this? Or your punch really looks terrible, so don't do that right now. Use that big forearm or something like that."
Right.
And that's how the old timers were. And if they trusted you, then they kind of took you in, and that's how you learned. And that's how I learned. And that was my very first meeting with a guy that was a superstar. He came in from Australia and he sold out every single place with Killer Kowalski, who was a household name at the time.
Right.
In the United States or wherever, if somebody thought you were acting like a tough guy, they'd say to you, "Who do you think you are, Killer Kowalski?" So Dominic, like I said, was a superstar. I'm lucky, I was allowed to be his friend, as I feel the same way about Mickey. And the old timers, well, you're an old timer now, Mick.
I am,
but
yeah.
Anyway, back then, guys like Mickey made us proud because they represented our business, because we were really serious about the business. Guys like Dominic Bruno, Mike Cicluna, Mickey then, we didn't tolerate somebody making a joke about what we did for a living.
Exactly.
It was dead serious. We try to make the people believe because we believed.
Exactly.
That's how it worked. And Dominic was serious about that. So for me, it was special that I was allowed to be in that little circle, and allowed to kind of be there. And Cody, saw the end of it there, but I'm sure he saw how that was. That's how we kind of were brought up in the business.
Well,
but
I told you.
That's how I met Dominic. That was a long story.
That was a good one, though.
My wife has heard too many times.
No, that's all right. I could hear that over and over again. I remember when I was telling the story, Mick, before you got here, when we had one of the one of the Moondogs was at my house. And I was joking with Dominic because I like to go back at him once in a while, even though I could never meet him, with his comments. But anyway, it's fake stuff, blah, blah, blah. And he knew that I knew, what was going on. So he says to Moondog, he says, "Put her in a sleeper hold." And I was like, "Oh, come on, stop it. I'm just kidding." He pushed me. And I backed into Moondog. He put his hand around here with his other hand across my head. And I was like, Dominic, he said, "Let her go." And he said to me, he said, "It's an ordeal, huh? How do you like that?" And I'm like, "Damn it, I hate you. I hate you with a passion." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "But now you don't say that no more." He was very adamant about that. And Cody, I wanted to ask you, did you, I don't know how long ago you were learning the chiropractic stuff, but did you ever teach Dominic how to do that stuff that you do?
I think Dominic taught you.
Well, Mick, it's funny. I remember hurting my neck.
Yep.
In the gym at Dominic's early on. I was outside the ring and he goes, "Kid, I'm going to teach you how to come in." Well, he didn't teach me. He just grabbed that top rope, shot me in, and I landed on my head. And this is years before I went into college for it. And he's in the mat with me. He's working on my neck, and he's got a towel on me, and he's pulling, and he knew things like that years before.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Although when I referred to him in the book I wrote in 1999, I said he was like Mr. Miyagi. Remember?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, yes, he did. Yeah.
Oh my God,
so I was going to ask Danielle, do you remember your dad? Where did he picked it up? I guess just from other people.
He did. He did. He and I can't remember the man's name, but it was in Canada, Montreal, and some other.
Yes.
Right, Mark? You remember?
It was.
That?
It was. Because Dominic actually had a table at his house also.
He sure does. Yeah. He
had a table.
He has worked on he worked on my husband's back for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry, Cody. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave.
He brought the table to the New York Times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They thought he was a chiropractor in there.
Yeah.
And I was a union official. I got a call from a vice president of the Times, and he said to me, "Hey, listen, I know he's your friend and we love him, but he can't practice chiropractic at the New York Times." He says, "We got a little bit of insurance responsibility here."
Yeah.
I said, "He's okay." He says, "No, he can't do that."
No,
But he
He
was
has
so
to do it
good.
somewhere else. Yeah.
No, he put the table in a truck and nobody saw him.
But I remember Cody, over the the time we were there, probably at least a dozen occasions, maybe a couple dozen, where guys would get injured and they think they were injured, and then Dominic would like grab a hold, and it was like watching Mr. Miyagi work on Daniel LaRussa.
Oh my
and
God.
Guy would hop up and we're like, I have no idea how he did that. No
Yep.
idea.
And
But
he was actually manipulating people. He was mobilizing, manipulating, and no, he did learn that in Canada.
and
Yeah,
he
he
had
did.
those enormous hands of such great strength.
And the thing is, he used to do that to me, and he actually taught me. He taught me how to do some of that stuff, like where you, like somebody lays on their stomach and you just crack down their spine, and and like you lay on your side and you take the hip and the shoulder and push them like the wrong way, that kind of stuff. He taught me a lot of that stuff, and I used to do it to my kids and to my friends, and stuff like that. So when I spoke to you, Cody, I wondered if maybe that was where he learned it, but apparently not.
No,
wow. He was, I don't think there's anything that Dominic couldn't do. Let's put it that way. He could build stuff. He had a farm. He raised a family. He dealt with me. He learned chiropractic. He had accolades all over the place. He had such a tremendous reputation. He was kind. He was considerate. He was respectful. He was educated. I can't think, honestly, of one negative word, except him being a pain in the ass, but I can't think of one negative word to say about him. And
but
Danielle,
I think the practical jokes of him and the nicknames he would have for people, that was all out of love. Like if he didn't like you, that's when you weren't going to be getting anything. If he loved you, then you were going to get ribs and you were going to get
that's true.
Stuff. It was all out of love.
Always.
But he also knew how to, he knew the humor within himself too, because he would tell us stories that would kind of poke fun at him. I mean, Mick, do you remember the chicken wire story?
It's my favorite story.
Exactly.
Tell it. I want to hear it.
Can I preface it? You can give.
You tell the story. It's hilarious.
He's going to be in a cage match in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the cage, for some reason, was not available, wasn't delivered, whatever the case was. It was like wooden beams with chicken wire.
Yeah.
Oh
and
my
they
God.
tell Dominic in his promo, whatever you do, don't say that it's chicken wire. Mark, you know the promo, right?
It may look like a chicken wire, but it ain't no chicken wire.
Oh my God.
That's gotta be up there. I can't remember which wrestler said in Portland. He was, one of the Samoans. I'm sorry. I'm probably casting dispersion on whoever it was, but he goes, "Brother, next time I know, sell the gimmick."
Oh my God, he was so funny. And we used to go to wrestling whenever he came up to my house. We would go to the matches together, and I was at the age when I was dating some of the wrestlers, if you would call it that. But anyway, we would drive to the match, and I would do my hair and the makeup and the whole 9 yards, and we'd be driving, and Dominic said to me, "What the hell? What did you do to yourself?" And I'm like, "What? I did my hair and my makeup." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "You're not looking no better." He goes, "And there's nobody going to like you." He goes, "Well, why are you going to go?" He goes, "What do you think? Other people are going to say, oh, she's so pretty. She's going to go out with me." He said, "They don't want that shit." And just like that. And I was like, wow, thanks, Dominic. And I was like, in the car, I'm like, thanks. You made me feel really good. And it was in the dead of summer, and I had the window up because he didn't want to put the air conditioner on. So we had the windows up. He goes, "Put your window down." I said, "No, it'll mess up my hair." He goes, "That big deal. Maybe it'd be an improvement, you know." But always, all the time. It's all he did, all the time. And I loved him even more. I loved him more when he was like that, because like you said, Jeannie, if he didn't like you and he didn't say all that stuff to you, then you should worry.
Yeah, you didn't get that. You didn't get that person. Exactly. Yeah.
No, exactly. He was a saint. Go ahead,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, I just wanted to share that, you know, the last few years of his life too, he talked more and more, as I think we probably all will. But Davey, he spoke so highly of you, you know that, and he would tell the different stories and the, you know, the funny and the touching, and how much he never regretted 1 second of anything that he ever did. You know how much he loved you and your kids, and he loved to tell the story about how he gave Davey a cigar. When he was about 5 years old. Yeah, 7 years old. So, but
4 years
Mick,
old.
4 years old.
Oh my God.
Dominic was telling him,
Yeah.
he says, "Your boy, he was 4 years old."
Yeah, with 3 fingers.
Yeah. Then what did he say? But I didn't light it. I didn't let him light it.
Yeah, it wasn't lit.
It wasn't.
Well, that made it okay. Yeah, that made it okay.
I don't want to talk too much. I was somewhere, and when Dominic was transitioning from new wrestling to the newspaper business, like I said, he lived with us, and we had a house, had a long piece of property. In the back was woods and things like that. And I came home, and Dominic was out with my son David, who was 4 years old, in the yard somewhere, and I'm in the kitchen with my wife, and I had just gotten home. And she looked out. I said, "Well, where's David?" She's always with Dominic. "Oh, here they come now." And as they're walking up the yard, my wife is looking, and she says to me, "What's that in David's mouth?" I said, "I don't know." And they got a little closer, and Dominic and David both had a Denobile in their mouth. And my wife went, "Dominic, is that one of your cigars?" He says, "Oh, don't worry, it's an Olit." So David and my friend Dominic, Uncle Dominic, both had a little cigar. He says, "Come here, kid." He says, he says, "Your mama's going to kick your ass." He says,
"Yeah, exactly."
If I can interrupt for a second, Cody, you would know this. Davey, what type of cigars were they?
What was that, Mickey?
What was the brand of cigar that he liked?
Denobile.
So Cody, I haven't heard from Kurt Kaufman in many years. I don't know where he is. I hope he's still with us, but Kurt was a great guy. And he looked up to Dominic to the point where, like, within a month, he was basically a second. He was like a second Dominic. He had the cigar. He had the weight belt. He would give you the handshake. He would call you kid. He just looked up to Dominic so much that he was like telling stories about the old days. And at that time, I think he did 4 matches. He's like, "I can tell you this, West Virginia fans, some of the best people I've ever worked in front of." I'm like, "You had 2 matches." But he was a good guy. And I don't know what happened to him. I stayed over his house about 25 years ago. That's the last I heard. So I hope he's out there and hope he's doing well.
Hope so.
I'll tell you, Dominic was, to me anyway, personally, obviously I don't have the same kind of stories that you do, but years ago, and I know Davey and Mick, you know this for sure. Cody, I'm not sure how much you know about how things were back in the day. If you were a girl going to the matches. Jeannie, there was they were called ring rats, women who hung around to wait for the boys, and so to speak. I was never one of those. Thank God my mother taught me better than that. And Dominic would have kicked my ass, But we were there, and like the wrestlers, like as soon as they walked in the door, 9 million girls would be there like, oh, I rented you a limo and I bought you this and I did this and I did this, And I was never one of those people. I never refused to do that. I wasn't going to wait on anybody. I didn't even do it with either one of my husbands. I wasn't going to do it with somebody else. So Dominic came out one time and he goes, got mail. He goes, go get me a cup of coffee. And I said, what? He goes, go get me a cup of coffee. I said, all right, wait a minute. You want me to go get you a cup of coffee? I said, who's going to pay for it? He goes, you. I said, no, I'm not. I said, you give me money for your coffee and buy me one. He goes, Manaj. He goes, what the hell? He goes, these other girls, they do anything you want them to do. Look at what they do for these guys. And I said, well, I'm not one of them, okay? And I'm not doing that. So give me money. And he goes, son of a bitch. And he pulls out $1 and he hands it to me. He goes, here, choke on it.
Hey, I have a question for Danielle. As you were an only child, and then at a young age, your dad and mom basically adopt, taking a bunch of stray wrestlers. And because, I remember sleeping in the camper you had out by the barn. We were always over. And I just wonder what that was like for you at such a young age to go from being an only child to having all of these people around.
Oh, it was great. And you know why? Because none of our family was here. So I missed that. My dad's family, Italy and Montreal. My mom's family is all in California. So I never had any of that. I loved every minute of it. I did.
I'm
yeah.
Sure, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, again, too, the last few years of his life, as he was reflecting back on different things, he talked most about the days of having the gym down here in Freedom. Yeah. I know that was such an important part of his life, but he had that, and I know you guys are going to remember, Mark and Mickey especially, you're going to remember that picture. And I'm the one that took the picture. It was there was you and Brian and Troy and I believe Dave is in it. I think you all have that picture.
Yeah, Dave
it's a big,
too,
huge picture. Dave, yeah. And, he had that right in the living room, and he would talk about every one of you, but especially Mick and especially you, Mark, too. We've talked about how special Mickey was to him and Dave, and that's for sure, but he was so very fond of you.
So he would no-sell Cody? What are you telling me?
Yeah.
Cody, I just want to take a moment for everyone to know that we were a tight-knit group, but among us, you stood out as the guy who by far among the wrestlers kept in the best touch. I mean, you saw Dominic or spoke to him at least once a week, didn't you, for years on end?
Yes.
That's really special, because I think that I get credit that belongs to you. And I know Shane was very good, but I don't think anyone was as good as you were at keeping in touch. And, I would reach out when I was in town and say, let's get together. But you were there. I really admire that. You were there a lot. No. You were a big part of his life. And,
absolutely.
And he was a friend. He was a friend. And that's like Davey was saying earlier. And that's like, Mick, I don't know if you got, I texted you a picture 20 years apart. I mean, now how does that look now? When we were at the benefit for Brian Hildebrand, and then 20 years later, we went to Dominic's, had wine, grilled some steaks, and it was, you, Troy, me, and Dominic superimpose those pictures 20 years later.
Yeah,
that's absolutely,
you can't replace that.
Well, it's funny, when I was trying to get in touch with everybody. My friend Brian, who's producing the show, God bless him, I wrote a letter to Mick, and I said, what's it going to hurt? If I don't ask, I won't know. So I wrote this beautiful, nice letter to Mick, and I said, about the tribute to Dominic, blah, 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 and maybe could he try to get a hold of Troy for me? And he was very kind and contacted me, and he said, you know what? He said, maybe you should try to call Mark. He said, Cody. He said he was actually there a lot. He was closer, I think, to Dominic than anybody, really, and blah, blah, blah. And I jumped right on. I was like, all right, give it to me. And I hadn't met you prior to that. And then I contacted you, and we talked a little bit on text, and then we talked on the phone. And, that's how I got to know who Mark is. But that was wonderful because Mick, came right out and he said, more so than anybody, I think, Mark was the guy, and I was like, I was honored. That was great. And I thought, I will love to do this. And I think that once the fans see this, honestly, I mean, we have superstars here, Davey, Mick, Cody, you guys are all great stars and you're, and I love you to death. But I think that the point that we're trying to make here will be the point that gets out. And that's the point that Dominic was a megastar. He was a real big star, and to this day his memory will live on forever. And I believe that, my kids told me one time, that if I did this, I don't know anything about this stuff. I just started doing it. I'm 66 years old, 67 tomorrow, but 66, and I'm doing this, and a friend of mine said, wouldn't you like to leave a legacy for your children? And I thought, yeah, that sounds good. But let me tell you, this will be alive as long as the internet is alive. And that does my heart good. Because
people can look it up. Google Dominic's name. This would be probably one of the top 10 things that comes up.
Absolutely.
Cody, just want to mention that I talked about Dominic having the run and that most of the world doesn't know about it. I mean, you had that nice run in Memphis and then USWA as well, right?
Yes.
And then you broke your neck.
And that's,
oh my God, you broke your neck?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Carmel was asking me before how Dominic was as a trainer. And, the way I said it was, he taught us how to wrestle.
Yeah.
Well, the first day I went in, when Eddie Gilbert had called and said, would you come down to Memphis? It was kind of like a tryout. But, the first night I wrestled was National Fairgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Heels are on one side, babies are on the other.
You don't talk to anybody. Yeah.
You don't
even
talk
see your
to anyone. So the first match I had down there, I get in the ring and it was with Tom Pritchard. Never met him, never talked. So guess what you had to learn how to do and know how to do? You had to know how to wrestle.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that entire match was nothing but getting in and wrestling. And right after, Eddie said, do you want a job? Well, that was Dominic.
Yeah.
Because he taught us how to, you didn't have to talk a match out for 45 minutes and rehearse everything. It was learn to, it's what he taught us. And that's the best thing I can say is he taught me how to do it.
Just coming off that, in case anyone's looking and go, but Mick Foley, like he, used garbage cans and chairs, and I did all that. But Dominic was the one I mentioned in the first book I wrote. He spoke in almost like parables. You have to be able to write letters before you can write words before you can write sentences before you can write paragraphs. And it was imperative that you had to know how to wrestle. So even though I did less of what people call technical wrestling as time went by, it was always the base because, like Cody said, there were times where you may not have seen your opponent, but there were other times where you didn't even speak their language and didn't see them.
Yeah.
And you had to be able to go out there and you had to be able to put together a match. I love today's, product. I don't put it down. I think I liked our storytelling a little bit better back in our day. But at that time, to be a pro meant you had to be able to go in there and 10 minutes, like the first, he says 10 minutes, a no punch kick. And I will ask the live crowds, I dare you to find 10 minutes of me without any punch kick.
Well,
we did it all the time in the gym and at our shows, the Pennsylvania had an athletic commission, whereas West Virginia did not. I don't believe Ohio did either. And so we were all over those states, and it didn't matter that it wasn't like we were being taken advantage of, because clearly the money was not there. We're in front of 100 people, 26 in Pope, West Virginia. But I still go back and say, wow, those were some amazing nights, because every night was the most important match you'd ever had. And there was just something about that. I remember one night, I don't remember, Cody, if you were with us or not, but we treated ourselves to Fazoli's. Dominic, can you imagine Dominic going to Fazoli's, right? This is like the least authentic Italian food out there. But it was way up on our capabilities. So to have $7 or $8 a piece, and we just sat there, I think it may have been after the polka match I had with Shane, and we could not have been happier. It's just crazy, that bond that you have with people that you met almost 40 years ago.
Yeah,
one more thing, Mick, when you mention wrestling and you say, what you're known for now, what people will remember more, I know you remember the shows that Dominic ran. What was his opening match all the time?
A technical wrestling.
You and Troy.
Oh yeah.
You would open up because
you believed in a strong match.
Mick, you could wrestle. You had. I mean, you were a technical. You were a wrestler, and also too, you were the one. You and Brian Hildebrand would sit and watch tapes and then come up and then practice in the ring. So, I mean, anybody watching this that doesn't know your history, never saw you actually wrestle. You were a good wrestler.
Yeah,
a little nod to Brian Hildebrand. If you were at Brian's house, you really didn't have a choice but to watch wrestling.
Brian.
He was a smoker, and he would get that cigarette. He'd be like he would lean forward to be about 2 feet from that TV.
Yeah.
And if you went to Brian's house, you were in it for the duration. But some of those matches that he showed me, Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask, like, what the heck am I going to do? I can't do a single thing they do. But one of the things I tell aspiring students is to try to absorb everything. You filter out what doesn't work for you at that time, but you never forget it, because you don't know when it might come in handy down the line.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, that Dynamite Kid Tiger Mask was so far ahead of its time. But if you broke it down, it was in some ways basic wrestling done to the utmost degree, and done with a speed and tenacity. But some of it was not. Like, there was this move I saw him and Tiger Mask do. I joked that I perused it like most young men of my generation perused the Fast Times at Ridgemont High topless scene with Phoebe Cates, just rewind, slow motion, just trying to get everything you possibly could. And when I finally broke it down, I was like, it's a suplex, drop behind, go behind through the ropes. And technically, it's like, these are 4 very simple things, but the way they did it made it look like it was magic. But when I finally broke it down, I was like, I can do all those things. Now, I couldn't do them as well or as fast, but I finally pulled it off. But, he made us believe that we could do anything. And he said, and Mickey, he knew I liked to do the wild stuff. He says, you do that, you learn that, you do that on your own. And we would add a little bit into the matches I had with Troy. But you look back now, and they were basically sound technical matches with a really, Shane was, even at that time, a charismatic babyface, and I was learning to be a heel, and still couldn't throw a punch, but I was learning everything else. And
it was the best match on the card. That's why he put it first.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember we came out when we had the matches with the Bill Watts' UWF guys, Terry Taylor and Chris Adams and Buddy Jack Roberts, and I came in to the dressing room, and Dominic was not a real back patter. You had to earn that compliment.
Oh yeah.
And in front of the guys, he says, they can have that match anywhere in the world.
Yep.
And that meant so much to me, because I knew he meant it. It wasn't just praise.
Right.
I'm Carmela or Carmel. I'm going to have to get off here in a minute.
Yes, that's okay.
Can I thank you all for having me on here? Danielle, it's so nice to see you.
You too.
And Jeannie and Carmela's first time I'm seeing you, Davey. We should have hit the ring together on that guy.
Oh yeah. Hey
Nick,
Mickey, if you're traveling, I'm in the Atlantic City area. Just
same
remember it.
here, Mick. If
I
you're
You're
sure
ever,
always
will.
welcome here.
Thank
you're
you.
ever
God
in the
bless.
area-
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right, Mickey, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks,
But I
everyone.
will send you the
Thank
link.
you.
And if you're ever in this area, please keep my name and number. You're welcome to my house for dinner anytime you want.
Oh, I sure will. I'll take you
I
up
am
on that. Thank
honored.
you.
Thank you. All right. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, Mickey.
Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
All right, Mickey,
Bye.
take care.
Cody, every
Bye-bye.
45 years or so, we'll say hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, listen, I just
For
wanted
sure.
to say something else too. Jeannie, I don't know if you were there, if you remember, there was a time when Dominic and Bruno worked together on promotions in Reading, Pennsylvania, and David was there too, and we had gone to breakfast one morning, and I had complained that Dominic was so cheap, and I said, you never pay for anything, and which he really did. And then he goes, all right, fine, I'll pay for breakfast. So after we got done eating breakfast, he goes over to pay the check, and he looked at the total, and he goes, God damn it, he goes, throw some up. He said it was too expensive. He wanted us to throw some up. He wasn't paying for that. That was too much money. But he also, one time, he and Bruno came and picked me up at my school, which was beyond amazing. And he told my teacher, we come to pick up a Carmel because her mom and dad, they don't like her no more. So we come and got her. And, I was like, thanks a lot, Dominic. Like he's telling my teacher, my parents don't like me anymore. That's why he had to come get me, But these were times that were beyond amazing. And to me, the good part is that they're so easily remembered, which tells me what an incredible impact he had on people, and it's amazing. It really is amazing. And he is. I hope, Danielle, honestly, this little tiny thing that we did for you, and for your father, I hope to God made a little tiny bit of an impact on you.
Absolutely.
That he was truly loved, and he was truly remembered, and he is truly honored by the people whose lives he impacted. And he impacted a lot of different lives, and he left us with the most incredible heart, and he left us with the most incredible memories. And to know that not one person has anything bad to say about your dad.
Yes, for sure.
I'm beyond honored that you're here, that you came
thank
on.
you.
Cody, I am beyond honored that you're here. It was a pleasure meeting you. I'd like to keep in touch with you both.
Sure.
Davey, love of my life, buddy. All the time. So I think if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, maybe we'll just give it a shot and end it here, because we're almost into 2 hours, which I'm so proud of.
Does anybody know if like on YouTube or anywhere on the internet there's like old matches of Dominic's? Because I know I would love to have people really go and look them up. And
there definitely are. Yeah, there's definitely.
So anybody watching this, if you're not familiar or you don't remember, go and look. He was amazing.
Yeah, if I want to remember him hitting me in the head with a milk crate.
Is that on the internet? Can I go?
I think it is, yeah.
Well, you know what I also like the best too is when Dominic got really angry. Okay, he would just throw his arms up in the air, and he would just fall down on his knees, and he'd bang his hands real hard on the mat, and you knew you were in for it, man. And I used to love seeing that. And he is, and always will be a part of my heart and a part of my family. And I believe that everybody on this platform today will agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was family. He was a saint. He was a good man. So again, Danielle, please know that, he's always in our hearts, and know that all the stuff that he did, none of it was ever in vain, that there are people who loved him, remembered him for all of the good things. And I know that he's up there right now watching and then saying exactly this. Carmel, you ever going to shut up? You and that big mouth, you never stop talking. And I can just hear him saying that now. But he loved me, and I loved him, and he loved all of you.
And Danielle, you see that picture behind Carmela?
Yes.
It's right there on my wall.
Yeah.
And you made me, George told you made me cry.
Aww.
So he's always,
And
he's always here. I see him every night. I say, "How you doing, kid?"
Yep. And I've been torturing Danielle now, God bless him, since he passed. And like, if you ever come across anything that you don't want, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I have stuff. I have stuff for you. I have stuff for Mark. I've got it all. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
I'm just not very good with getting it out. I had to be,
Well, that's all right. In time, no problem. But I would love very much to keep in touch with all of you. Jeannie, as always, thank you so much. I love
thank
all
you
of
for
you.
letting me be a part of this. I wasn't as close to him as all of you. Our interaction was only for a few years, like maybe 5 years or so, but he did. It was a big impact. Like Danielle, might sound weird, but I am weird. So, like I used to wish I was like your sister. Like I wanted to be Dominic's daughter. I was like so envious of you. Like, oh my God, how great would it be to be Dominic's daughter? You know what I mean? Like because he I got chills. He was just the best. He was just the best.
He was. Really, and like I said before, he stepped right up for me. And again, I never thanked him properly. And I got to be honest with you, that bothers me. It bothers me because I never got a chance to actually thank him for giving me family when I didn't have any, and that meant the world to me. And I loved him dearly. And I'm so grateful to everybody who was a part of this. And Danielle, thank you so much for allowing us to do this and for being a part of it.
Thank you for doing it. No, and everybody, Mark and Davey and Jeannie and Carmel, because I'm not going to say Carmela either.
No, Carmel.
Yeah, exactly. But no, thank you so much. Because and
Danielle, I'll give you a call. Give George my regards. All right, please.
Yeah.
Give George our regards too. That's another thing.
I promise I'll call.
Yeah, your dad.
I will.
No, your dad loved your husband too, by
Cody,
the way.
so good seeing you after all
Davey, always a pleasure, sir.
You look good.
Maybe one day, Davey.
I wish I look as good as you when I'm 30.
Maybe one day we'll do a road trip and all of us will get together and come down to Pittsburgh and see you guys.
Sounds good.
Keep working on your shoulder.
I will. Thank you. Yeah, I got a few more weeks of physical therapy, but it's going good.
And Carmel.
Carmel. No, it's Carmel now. You have to keep it that way.
I used to tell them there's no silent letters in the Italian language. What are you doing? But that was just he and I doing.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm honored to have that name because he's the only one who ever did it. Only one I know that ever called me Carmel. And that's all right. I'll take it. All right. Well, I'm going to take you guys, say goodbye, and I love you. I'm going to take you off the air. I'm going to stay on with you.
Good seeing everybody. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
God bless you all. Thank you so much. Okay, Jeannie, this was such a good show. I am beside myself, happy as hell that we did this show. Brian, thanks for hanging, honey.
Yes.
So we'll wait until you drop it for us and we'll put it out to everybody. Hopefully,
I don't know how many times I started to cry.
I still got
fantastic show, by the way. Fantastic show. And I told Carmela this is I knew very little about this man, but after listening to this and hearing, that everyone stayed in touch and stuff, he touched y'all's lives a little bit differently than he was special because you would not still be talking about it.
No,
so that is awesome.
He was very special.
And it was, like I said, here I am about to cry. And I didn't even know him, but it was really, really, really good. The stories were good. I didn't get bored at all. So this will probably be one of the highest rated ones, especially with, Mick was fantastic about coming on, and he didn't rush anything or do anything. So
he was good.
Cody Michaels, and he may hear this after we get done. I had a connection with him when I was
wondering because he mentioned Memphis.
Yeah, I was doing a podcast one time, and someone mentioned that Cody had that we were watching US. I don't know, but there's some kind of connection because I had looked him up to see if I could get a hold of him because I was going to ask him about him breaking his neck. And when I went to look him up again, you know how you can tell whether you've been on Wikipedia, it'll be a different color. I said, yeah, that's him. That's the same guy that I had looked up. And then and I looked up, and him and Jeff Jarrett, Memphis was really famous about saying the title changes may not have really happened, but it says that they won the tag team titles in Jonesboro. So that was really what
weird. Would be a good idea, Brian? Maybe if you can get a hold of Jeff Jarrett, we can have him and Cody back.
Well, that would be awesome. Neat. That would be
neat. If you can try it.
All right, guys, I'm gonna do this. I'll try to get it out before I'm leaving at 3:00 your time. It's my anniversary this weekend.
Oh, happy anniversary! Happy anniversary!
12 years.
Yay. And happy Father's Day, darling.
Yes, all right, thank you very much.
Thank
Love
you.
y'all.
Thanks. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jeannie. Bye, Brian.